Did you know that Joab, the general of the army of Israel during the reign of King David, became general because of a bet made by King David? 1 Chronicles 11 verse 6 says, David said, "Whoever strikes the Jebusites first shall be chief and commander." And Joab the son of Zeruiah went up first, so he became chief. And that sounded really simple enough. But when you read the account of this event in 2 Samuel chapter 5 verse 8, it says, "And David said on that day, whoever would strike the Jebusites, let him get up the water shaft to attack the lame and the blind." And that also sounded simple and kind of off the fact that David said, let them attack the lame and the blind. I mean, why would they want to attack the lame and the blind? Well, it's mainly because the people of the city of Jebus, which was known to be a city set on a hill that was near impenetrable, so that they could defend the city with even an army of the lame and the blind because of where it was situated. And the only way David saw to even get into the city was through the water shaft. And that sounds simple until you realize the Jebusite water shaft was a miles-long tunnel that had to be scaled up in order to ambush the city. And the Action Bible really captured this simple verse really well.
Even if we were lame and blind, we could defend this city from the likes of you!
Whoever can capture this city will be the commander of all my armies.
Deal. That night, Joab and some of his men find the waterway that leads out of the back of the city.
Yuck! Crawling through the sewers. We'll be unclean for a month after this.
We have no choice. The outside defenses are impregnable. Jerusalem must be taken from within.
Surprised by the sudden appearance of David's men, the guards are quickly overcome.
Give the order to open the gates or die!
The terrified officer shouts the order. The huge gates swing open, and David's army charges through.
So yeah, in this installment of Unsung Bible Stories, we'll be continuing our deep dive into the sons of Zeruiah, David's sister, who gifted him with 3 of the best warriors Israel ever had, who also had a lot of personal flaws. We also covered Abishai, the eldest of the 3, who was all about shoot first, ask questions, and repent later mindset. And now we'll be diving into the middle child, the one who became Israel's general. During the battle against the Ammonites in 2 Samuel 10, when the army of Israel was surrounded on all sides, Joab devised the plan of splitting up the army into 2 and giving half of the troops to his brother Abishai, a move that in the moment was really questionable as he had to encourage them to really trust in the Lord to see it through. As verse 12 says, "Be strong and let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. The Lord will do what is good in his sight." We covered the entire battle that initially started over some shamefully shaved beards in a previous installment. When David devised his plan to kill Uriah the Hittite in an effort to cover up his sin of laying with Bathsheba, who was Uriah's wife, the letter he sent with Uriah to get Uriah killed, the sheer nerve David had here, was addressed to Joab. 2 Samuel 11 says, "In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. In the letter he wrote, 'Set Uriah in the forefront of the hardest fighting, then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die.' And as Joab was besieging the city, he assigned Uriah to the place where he knew there were valiant men. And the men of the city came out and fought with Joab, and some of the servants of David among the people fell. Uriah the Hittite also died. Then Joab sent and told David all the news about the fighting." In the Absalom saga, which is what I like to call 2 Samuel chapter 13 to 19, Joab was in the midst of everything that was happening. I'll be summarizing, but I do plan to cover it in the future. Chapter 14 tells us how we realize how much David missed his son Absalom after he fled and was exiled from the kingdom for 3 years, due to events that took place in chapter 13, where he hired a band of men to kill his own brother after he raped their sister. Yeah, David's offspring were, oh geez, those guys were something else. So Joab devised a plan to get a wise woman disguising herself as a woman who was grieving for the dead to go before the king and give him a parable. Or as the Blue Letter Bible commentary puts it, Joab bringing a feigned issue as lawyers speak which means simulated or pretended, to be tried before him, the king gives the woman a general judgment of what he believes the resolution should be. In hearing this resolution, the woman then skillfully interjects David's situation with his son Absalom into the simulated issue to show that David is not following his own advice. When David comes to the realization of it all and inquiring if Joab was behind the whole plan, he sends him to bring Absalom back into the kingdom. However, even though he brought Absalom back into the kingdom, David did not go to visit or call upon his son for 2 whole years. Absalom one day sent for Joab in order to send him to the king, but Joab refused to come to him. So, to get Joab's attention in a way he cannot ignore Absalom, Absalom set Joab's barley field on fire. And when he came to him immediately, furious of course, 2 Samuel chapter 14 verse 32 says, Absalom said to Joab, "Look, I sent word to you and said, 'Come here, so I can send you to the king to ask. Why have I come from Geshur? It would be better for me if I was still there. Now then, I want to see the king's face, and if I am guilty of anything, let him put me to death.'" So Joab went to the king and told him what his son did and said, leading to the first time in 5 years that Absalom was able to see and embrace his father. Absalom was then welcomed into the palace, got himself a chariot, and took the role of going to and fro from the palace to the gates to hear complaints and messages that the people were bringing to the king. To many of them, Absalom would just side with them and tell them that there is no representative of the king to hear them out, so he did. And he even added that if he was a judge, he will ensure that everyone will receive justice. After doing this for 4 years, he built up a lot of favor among the people and used it to start an uprising on his father. Eventually, David's forces, led by Joab, his brother Abishai, and Ittai, fought against Absalom's forces. But before sending them into battle, David asked the entire army to still deal kindly with his son, despite what he has done, and not to kill him. Joab killed Absalom. So when David received the news, which though the situation is very sad and serious, the story of how this message was delivered to David is one of the best and funniest battle reports in my opinion in the whole Bible. I covered it in our very first installment of Unsung Bible Stories, where I express why I personally read the Bible like fiction. But that statement is not in the way you think though. David wept greatly for his son to the point the entire kingdom was concerned on if he was capable of carrying out his duties as king, to which Joab gave him a firm pep talk. And paraphrasing here, "Yes, I know your son is dead and all that, but get over it, you have a kingdom to run." And when David returned back to the throne, he forgave some of the men who sided with Absalom, including Amasa, who Absalom put as a commander of the army, and sent a message to him saying in 2 Samuel 19 verse 13, "Are you not my own flesh and blood? May God deal with me, be it ever severely, if you are not the commander of my army for life in place of Joab." So during the Sheba rebellion in 2 Samuel chapter 20, for the first time in the reign of King David, Israel was led into battle by someone other than Joab, until Joab killed an unsuspecting Amasa at one of their arranged rendezvous points and took back control of the army of Israel and reappointed himself as general. In 2 Samuel chapter 24, when David wanted to take the census at the time it was not necessary, and doing so was going against God's law that he gave to Moses, Joab questioned the king on his command to him to go and take the census. Even other commanders questioned the decision, but they went and did so anyway. And we later read in the chapter that David was judged by God severely for going against his commands, which was a whole other story. To end off the recorded events of Joab, the second son of Zeruiah in the Bible, we'll look at his death. Yeah, that's a segue. Coming to the end of King David's life in the book of 1 Kings, when it was time to appoint one of his sons as the new king, Adonijah, in a fashion similar to Absalom at the time, went and got the support of some of the other key government figures in the kingdom to be the next king, which included Joab the general and Atiba the priest, and they held their own feast and pronounced him as king without actually going through the official procedure of the coronation and the blessing and everything else from the past king. But Bathsheba, on the other hand, got David to swear that their son Solomon will be the new king when he dies, and they went through the proper procedure of anointing him as the new king and the coronation and all the stuff that comes with it. Before David died, he left precise instructions for Solomon on some of the very first things he ought to do as king. One of them included putting Joab to death. Reading from 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 5, "Moreover, you know what Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me, how he dealt with the two commanders of the armies of Israel, Abner the son of Ner, and Amasa the son of Jether, who he killed, avenging in time of peace for blood that had been shed in war, and putting the blood of war on the belt around his waist, and on the sandals of his feet. Act therefore according to your wisdom, but do not let his grey hair go down to Sheol in peace." Oh jeez. So skipping to verse 28, when the news came to Joab, for Joab had supported Adonijah, although he had not supported Absalom, Joab fled to the tent of the Lord and caught hold of the horns of the altar. And when it was told King Solomon, "Joab has fled to the tent of the Lord, and behold, he is beside the altar," Solomon sent Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, saying, "Go strike him down." So Benaiah came to the tent of the Lord and said to him, "The king commands, come out." But he said, "No, I will die here." Then Benaiah brought the king word again, saying, "Thus said Joab, and thus he answered me." The king replied to him, "Do as he has said, strike him down and bury him, and thus take away from me and my father's house the guilt for the blood that Joab shed without cause. The Lord will bring back his bloody deeds on his own head, because without the knowledge of my father David, he attacked and killed with the sword 2 men more righteous and better than himself, Abner the son of Ner, commander of the army of Israel, and Amasa the son of Jether, commander of the army of Judah. So shall their blood come back on the head of Joab and on the head of his descendants forever. But for David and for his descendants and for his house and for his throne, there shall be peace from the Lord forevermore." Then Benaiah the son of Jehoiada went up and struck him down and put him to death, and he was buried in his own house in the wilderness. And to end off with a Christian commentary on this passage, David wanted Solomon to begin his reign in justice and to first give justice to Joab, who was guilty of the murder of both Abner, the general of Israel's army under Saul, and Amasa, one of David's military commanders. Joab is one of the more complex characters of the Old Testament. He was fiercely loyal to David, yet not strongly obedient. He disobeyed David when he thought it was in David's best interest, and he was cunning and ruthless in furthering his own position. At the very least, David knew the complexity of Joab's character. He knew the loyalty and sacrifices Joab made for David over the years, and he knew his violence and ruthlessness. David felt under obligation to Joab, and though David was certainly not lacking in courage, he was not able to cope with the mixture of Joab's loyalty and his misdeeds. So yeah, a sad end to one of my favorite people and the most complex characters in the Old Testament. That's 2 sons of Zeruiah down, 1 more to go, and I have been intentionally leaving out the battle with Abner because it's crucial to Ashael's story. And with that being said, if you watched to this point of the video, then why not consider leaving a like on it and subscribing with post notifications, and even sharing the channel with others. On this channel, we primarily break down Christian and non-Christian fictional stories, but we also make more generalized Christian content like this, as well as an initiative to do Christian creative projects ranging from making replicas of different places in the Bible to making small-scale video games based on Christian fictional stories. If you are looking for something else on the channel to watch, then be sure to check out the previous installment of Abishai if you haven't already, and the final one to conclude the Sons of Zeruiah mini deep dive Unsung Bible Story series on Ashael, which will be available to click on right now.